Have you ever had a dream, an aspiration, ambition, something you'd really love to achieve, but so far it's eluded you? The barrier is normally a blend of lack of self-belief, fear, imposter syndrome. It's these thoughts that stop people before they ever get started. But what if we could remove these barriers? What if we could dismantle these mental blocks? If we could do that, there's a very good chance that we could change some lives. This is our mission. Over the course of 90 days, we're going to help amazing people to take on their biggest, hairiest, scariest goals. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? This is mental. Any challenge we take on contains a blend of things we probably can predict and a whole raft of stuff we don't see coming. Of course, we don't choose what comes, but we can choose how we respond, what we learn, and how we use the lessons.
So we were nicely looking for an opportunity as part of the challenge to look at the next step forward. How do I move forward from the function down in London to kind of what's the next step forward? Well, bigger audience, a paying audience, because that was the thing to get over as well. People actually paying for my value that I bring. The nice segue to get that to work was they weren't actually paying me, but they were agreeing to pay some money into the Newcastle Rugby Foundation, to which I'm the ambassador, to drive one of the programs we're doing there. So wonderful opportunity for them to get involved with the foundation. Wonderful then opportunity for me to talk at it and bring them some value for their leadership development and team building day to bring them together. And what was lovely was that day was organized around them actually experiencing the program that they were going to then go and fund. So it's called the Futures Program, which was my attempt through the wonderful Chris Cook and Lisa Morrison to bring a program to pay forward Blackies initiative, how you can create environments for others. So we take that into schools, and UNW would sponsor that into a school. They got to actually live it themselves and go through some of the challenges we set for the kids there. And they just got bored by me for an hour doing some stuff as well.
Essentially, I'm here to talk to you about teams, what brings people together. And it's about caring. It's about caring for yourselves. It's about caring for each other. Okay? And you can see that in display out there marvelously. It's just really giving some structure to some of the thinking that's maybe going on in your mind, things you're doing innately, but in a way that really translates into a really, if you like, an intentional way of how you approach things and a mindset way of how you approach things. Not difficult, but it's really rare to be part of a real team. Because the reality is most of us don't ever get to experience it. Because when you really do, it just makes the most unreal difference to your lives and how you approach everything you do in and outside of work, such that that legacy almost of that time you spend together translates into how you want to conduct yourself for your rest of your life. I believe it's massively impactful and really important to sort of kind of really get this. It's almost like a superpower when you get it. Because in reality, as I said, it doesn't happen enough out there. We can also translate that into UNW and your life here, and how that translates into the impact sort of side of things you've said. How can you marry you with impact to create the kind of team that these guys are you're all trying to look to achieve?
So as a result, I felt better because I'd done the first one. It wasn't, there was an opportunity to build on something that I was comfortable that I could deliver. But then there's a self-imposed sense of apprehension, I guess, or nerves that build in about, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to show up today? Am I going to bring them the value that I want them to take away from it? So the natural apprehension stuff kicks in, but buoyed, I suppose, or countered by the sense of, well, I've done this before. I kind of know what I'm talking about. I know how to make it better. And I suppose also because one of the learning points was starting it off with a better start. was once I'd got what I felt was a better start out of the way, but getting going well. And that was where the apprehension was just getting the first few lines done well. And then I can just settle into what follows then, because, that was one of the biggest things I wanted to take forward.
That they must be excellent. It just, you bring the best players together, they're going to be a great team. But to get a really high performing team, the ones that are really in sync, the ones that are really together, really committed towards playing with each other, is really rare. And you're all the baggage that you might come with, and somehow we've got to put the differences aside to come together. And the best way to articulate that with a sense of getting rid of a you versus me mentality, which we're all laden with, understandably, because we've got to think about ourselves. How can we create an us and an us versus a challenge? I want that to sink in. You versus me to become us versus the challenge. It's not going to be perfect by any means. But how can we strive towards doing that? Because if you do strive towards it and try and get to there, that is your way of creating real team, real high-performing team. It's not the physical side of things that creates how we feel. It does play a part. It's the people within it. It's the people within it that create the environment. And we had some amazing people. The famous ones, most of you will know Johnny. Those of you who don't, they're really young in here. Johnny Wilkinson, world legend, won a World Cup for England, the only World Cup we've ever won, with a drop goal in the final seconds of extra time. That's him as a 17, 18-year-old starting up here. Rob Andrew was my boss up here, giving me a hug. The other gentleman is a guy called Inga Twigamala. Just to cut some context, I'm going to talk about him in a bit. Probably the world's best player ever. And I had the fortune of playing against him, misfortune, sorry, but the fortune of playing with him and calling him a friend of mine. We used to live down in Wylam together. But the man I really want to focus on is the one on the end, the beard. And most of you won't have a Scooby who he is. His name is Steve Black. And you look at his role and you say, well, he was the strength and conditioning coach. And that's kind of it, his title. And often that way, isn't it? We have a title, but we go beyond that title. And this man went far beyond it than anyone I've ever met. It was the first place I'd come to where, especially in a rugby environment where it's all that intensity and stereotypical toxic alpha male thing, but I came in here and the first thing I got was a hug. And he didn't ask you, Blackie, about how good you are between 0 and 10. He gave you a hug. He gave you a hug, and from that hug, he could tell where you are between 0 and 10. And what he was engendering was a sense of real personal touch, real sense of connection to you as an individual, as a person. Looking beyond your role, it's looking beyond whether you're a winger, a scrum half, a prop, a forward, or whatever your sport, whatever your role is that you're playing right now. Looking beyond that to see you as a person and as an individual, that kind of connection. It's an essential step to get from you versus me to us versus the challenge.
So when Tony presented at Kingston Park, which was the home of Newcastle Falcons, and when I think about Tony's stories, the really emotional bits are all connected with Newcastle Falcons. We were in that venue. We were in the same stadium that he'd played, but also in one of his sort of spiritual homes, as it were, spiritual home of rugby almost. And I expected that to be a really emotional occasion for him. But also there were a lot of people in that room who were also connected with the people that Tony talks about. They will have known those people. It will have been emotional for them as well. And I think when I was reflecting on Tony's delivery and we were going into it, part of it is about getting the content delivered, getting the structure right, nailing your start, nailing your finish, etc. A bigger part of his challenge that day was the emotion of the occasion.
So I've asked you the question. We meet before we get on the aeroplane, do our briefing and pre-flight preparations. So I've got a group of strangers. The other thing, it's Emirates, which is in Dubai, with nationalities that you wouldn't believe and cultures that you wouldn't believe and ages that you wouldn't believe, okay? So we're contending with all those challenges. How long do you think I have with them before we go to the aeroplane as a team grouped together? Any hazard a guess?
An
An hour. No moving from an hour? 5 minutes. Who said that? 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm billing. 3 minutes. 3 minutes is what's allocated to us, and it is because of time. Because we've got a time of limitation about how long we can be on duty when we're going to do a 17-hour flight. We've got a time of limitation about, taking up space, essentially. So 3 minutes as a group is the entire time I have together with this group to be the leader. Anyone know the mechanics of what happens on the flight deck these days? What's the barrier between the flight deck and the rest of the crew now? It's a locked door. You guys will all be much too young to understand that in the past, we actually used to have an open door. And so we could let people in and they can just come and have a look at this lovely flight deck and the views that we'd have and come and see the northern lights, etc., okay? Nowadays, that's all locked. So with the mechanics are, we've got 3 minutes, bus ride to the aeroplane, get on the aeroplane 20 minutes before the passengers get on board, and another 40 minutes maybe before we're pushing back for the locked door, and then off we go on a 17-hour flight to LA, to the other side. There's challenges here, isn't there? There's challenges in terms of how do I create unity in a team when that's what I'm up against with a group of strangers. So anyone who gives me the feedback about time, I don't have the time, you're not the audience I'm going to swear at, but let me go there, slightly PG, bollocks, okay? Absolute bollocks. You have the time. The word intentionality was mentioned. That's probably the best way. If you really care about this stuff, you care about caring, you have the time because you make it. You make it in any possible opportunity you can grab and find to make it happen. I'm making decisions at the front of that aeroplane that will affect the outcome of this flight. And any decision maker needs as much information as they possibly can get. There's a concept in aviation as what is worse than having bad news? No news. If you're not getting feedback on stuff, you should be worried. You want to be hearing from people. And that open flow of communication can only happen if people feel safe to do so with you. So that's what I'm trying to build right from the very beginning, a sense of safe. You can trust me. I'm not going to call that a silly question or put you down or make you feel small. Because you're important to me. I don't care who you are. I want to make a connection with you. But it's in the moment. That's where the secret sauce is. That's where it happens. That's where these connections occur to create team. Use it with intentionality. Care about caring in the moment. Be there for each other. Blackie had a phrase, he used to call it hope. Help other people excel. Create that hope in every interaction you possibly can. How can you be there for others? Sorry, this is always the hard bit for me. Those of you who can't read it at the back, basically, firstly, Jonah, that big superstar, he came literally the Serena Williams of rugby, or the Tiger Woods of rugby, etc. He passed away at the age of 40, 9 years ago. Even when he was running rings around us and running over us, he had kidney problems and lived with those and performed at the highest level. Even with that problem, he unfortunately passed away really young. So again, that internal challenge that I have, internal messaging and demon, who gives a shit about that? It's much more important things in life than how I played on a rugby pitch. So 2022 was a really bad year for this group because we lost Doddy. Doddy was a star here. And earlier in the year, sort of February-ish time, we actually lost Inga and Blackie within the space of a few weeks. So for this for us who have anything to do with this place, it's a massive, massive hit to us. And I want to share with you just, again, the point about this, about legacy. I've got a picture here that's near where I live. It's near Osmotherley, North Yorkshire. And I was just out on a cycle, and I came across this view, well, lots of lovely views, but just this one in particular. And you know, when you sort of see some, or have some wonderful experiences in your life, you kind of just really want to share it with somebody. And it's, at that time, it was just a few weeks after losing them both, it just hit me. And that's what happens with loss, is you're never going to experience it with them again. I'm never going to be able to share something like that with them. But within a few moments, it suddenly dawned on me, do you know what? I am sharing it with them. I'm sharing it with them because people like them, people part of a team that really come together as that we did then, they never leave you. You carry bits of them around with you everywhere you go. They stay with you forever. That legacy, that moment that you can create by really coming together as a team, it'll never leave you. Sorry. Towards the end of the talk with UNW, well, towards the end of all my speeches, there's I guess a trigger moment for some people. It's emotionally, you know, I talk about Blackie's passing, and not just Blackie's, but others, and how that affected me, but also how, if you like, I was able to switch my thinking in a positive way about their passing. But that's obviously a difficult moment for some people to go through, and it unfortunately just happened to be an emotional moment for a couple of individuals in the room that day who had to leave. I can't really finish this now, so there won't be a crescendo, because sorry. I want to segue into this, from this, into a sense of how can I give you something to do right now that starts the process of actually, intentionally bringing this on board in terms of who you are. Does anyone want to break? Shall I have a 5-minute break before I get going, okay? But should we just close the call then, okay? So that was the first time that's happened to me. That's the first time I've had that experience of it triggering in that way. So it did mean I had to kind of adjust the ending of that talk. There was an element of that being a factor, but also the element of me going straight into a workshop straight after, which kind of were the two new factors to bear in mind to the normal close, if you like, or natural close to the speech. So that was the first lived moment, if you like, of going from a feeling like that in the room through to, oh, it's something new I need to take people into. Because ordinarily I just be saying goodbye, thanks, sitting down and job done and move on, you know, but no, there was more work to do. So that was the bit to learn from, I guess, from that aspect of what happened there. Well, I basically told stuff about Blackie and Inga, and I should always do a health warning before I do it. Because you know the whole thing, they're going to be covering something of a sensitive nature.
Yeah, right.
So a few had to run, a few had to walk out. So.
Right.
But you know.
You can't predict everything.
No, you can't. Is that right? Geez, I don't know how to do it. Do you think? I don't know how to. Were you here when they walked out? No. He'd gone.
No, I'd gone.
So I leant into the Blackie thing, and
and then 3 had to leave. And then so the whole talk, if you like it was good from the emotion side of things, but it was kind of like, how do I bring this to a close? So I was glad I had this exercise to do, but I kind of just almost said, look, I can't really bring this to a crescendo now because I think this is, hit people a bit too hard. So just going to say, we're going to go in the exercise in about 5 minutes. Do you want to just take a break? So
Probably a good way to manage that.
only a few more minutes, I think, as they have some lunch. Okay, but the nice feedback that I did receive, because I did follow up with some, not directly to the individuals who were involved, but just to kind of talk about it with other people in the room, was to say that to actually thank me for, they were actually they were triggered and upset and had to leave the room, but they really valued my take on loss, about how to think about it in a positive way, which helped them. So that was nice to at least feel that sense. But yeah, as a learning point, it's like, well, how do I make sure that's addressed, I suppose, before I go and talk to others? And I don't think I'm doing that well enough yet. But at the same time, what I'm talking about is what I try and deliver is an emotional journey for people. So I kind of need them to do that, but I've got to be mindful about, just where I take them.
Can I just say, well, my apologies. I do, well, it's the fortune or the misfortune of having lived that every time I talk to people. As you can see, it's not easy for me, but I can understand for a lot of people it won't be easy for them, the kind of the nature of the subject I was talking about. And so my apologies, I didn't give you an opportunity to kind of know what was happening. But if you don't mind, can I ask you just to lean into that a little bit as we go into this next stage, and you'll find this hopefully super useful. So I'm going to ask you to do some work, and it's some work on yourself. So pad of paper or piece, please. We give you 7 seconds to essentially decide, is this word for right now, important to you or not? Or is it high, medium, or low? All right, does that make sense? So if I said to you the word cheese, is that important to you right now?
I think difference-wise, and you can tell me, I don't think we really scaled that one. Did we scale that one? I don't think we did, but I felt it was better from the aspect of the things that you'd fed back to me about, a sense of a bit more direction at the beginning and the end, and a little bit on the sort of steps that I take people through in terms of their takeaways. I think there was some emotional triggers going on, as with my story, that created an element of almost a natural pause for me to feel like, right, I don't want to bring this to a crescendo because I don't think it's the right thing to do here because of the nature of what just happened. And I needed to be rolling into the workshop as well. And that's kind of the emotion I wanted them to continue to be in, that state almost about, right, I think I've tuned into people's feelings and emotions. That's what I need to be tapping into through the workshop, which meant that, if you like, the speaking part didn't have a natural close to it. I think that's what if I look at the stuff that I do and the way I go about it, that's what I've got to lean into. Because it is all about feeling and emotion. You have to be courageous to lean into this in front, especially in certain environments. And so, dare I say, it's more a reflection on that environment and people's preparedness to be vulnerable, to be brave and courageous enough to step into that. You know, I love the way you've really helped me, that sense of it's a caring place. So it's not a criticism about them. They are caring places. They do. I operate in the fierce bit right up here, and there will be pockets everywhere of that, but most places it's rare, and that's okay. What we're trying to do, and what I'm trying to do, is get more of us into, okay, if you're not going to go fierce, let's get lukewarm fierce. You know, I'm going to have to have a term for that. What comes between care and fierce care? Tepid care. I don't know. Lukewarm care. Kind of caring. No, I don't know. But but yeah, somewhere. You know, let's just. I suppose fierce is 24/7. And how can we get from just words on a piece of paper and a values and mission statement and talking the talk? How can we have a few of your steps? If you're not completely walking it, how can we get more and more of your steps into walking the talk? So maybe that's a better metaphor to use. You know, I'm sprinting towards the talk. A lot of people are walking. Can we get them jogging?
Nick and Tony take on their final challenge to reach the summit of the mountain at their Hearts and Minds event. The big question is, are they up for the challenge?
Bang. My heart stopped. I died. I was in cardiac arrest. And I was drowning. I was very lucky that day.
But they tend to skip through it and they go straight for this, don't they? They go straight for challenge, KPIs, results, performance. But they never ever buy the right to do that with you.
Want to take part and achieve your big, hairy, scary goal? For more information about the next series of This Is Mental and how you could get involved, visit thisismental.tv.